Welcome to another Friday Functions video. This week, I am so very excited to show you this new template gallery feature that we have. So it's like we have these new things that we're calling screen templates, and they are amazing. And I just had to talk about them. So if you go to our blog, you'll notice that just recently, Thursday, yesterday this week, Casey announced the new pre-built Office 365 screens. So these are templates that are built into the app that you can use in your own apps. And I am just so amazed. So go ahead and read his whole blog because it's a very interesting blog. And he talks about these 6 screens that I'm going to show you. I'm also going to show you some of the key formulas that you might want to be aware of in 3 of them. And then there'll be more documentation coming out soon. And next month, Casey is actually going to do a webinar to talk about some of the templates and new things that he has released and that's in planning. And I do want to give a special shout out to the technical genius behind these screen templates, whose name is Ian Davis. And some of you may know Ian very well. He's truly a genius when it comes to Power Apps. And kind of when we see these things come together, I just think of how useful this will all be in your own applications, in your own organizations, and so quickly. So let me show you what they look like. So what I've done is I've opened up 2 blank apps, one that is phone format and one that is landscape, just so you can see that they exist in both. Um, these 2 are blank apps, so you notice that they have no data sources. If I do view data sources, there are none. That's because there's none in there, right? But it's interesting that these templates have such great surprises. So where will you find these templates? You can find them on the Home tab or the Insert tab, either one, under the category of New Screen. So many of you have been using these templates already, but here are the 6 new ones. And they have kind of like thumbnail images to help you know what they do. But let's look at all of them. I'm going to start with the first 3 because for the most part, the first 3 I think you're going to want to customize. In most cases, you'll want to do something special to them. So I'm going to show you a bunch of things about how they work. And then the last 3 I'm going to show you in phone format. They all 6 work in both formats. I'm just going to show you the first 3 in tablet and the last 3 in phone. And the last 3, I really think you can use them out of the box as is because they drop down into these 2 template formats so beautifully that you don't have to do a lot of changes to them, but you definitely can. All right, so I'm going to start with success. And you would say, what is the success template? This is not a magic wand that makes your app successful. It's when you want to let someone know that the last thing they did turned out well, right? So basically, if you look at the pieces, let's see if I can zoom out and kind of in over here. So on the navigation, you'll see that I have screen 2 added. If you look at your app checker, which we introduced recently to you, you'll notice that you will have immediately 2 accessibility warnings. And this is because we don't recommend you leave your screen names screen 1, screen 2. People who are using screen readers won't be able to get much out of that. So I might rename this success screen, success screen, or some other term that would make sense in the flow of my application. And then I wouldn't have to worry about anybody with a reader having a problem with it. So that's just a little suggestion that in your accessibility. But basically, I'm going to go back to that screen. I'm going to get rid of screen 1. Don't need it anymore. And you'll notice that I have basically 3 items: a message text box, an icon for the check, and a circle. And so you could modify this slightly by maybe changing the check to an X, right? So maybe you might do some data validation. And if the form is submit, like say you're submitting a form, the submit button could come to this screen on success, Or maybe on failure, it might come to a different screen, or these icons may swap out or be visible based on whether the form submission was successful or not. So you can use this screen for many different purposes. All you have to do is edit the icon if you want to, and or edit the text. And what's interesting is this will respond to theming. So if I change the theme, guess what? Everything will change as well. So you can definitely use your themes to make these look more fun, or more in line with what you like to see. Now, there is no navigation configured, so you don't have a back button here, and you don't have anything helping them to get to this screen added. You'd have to do that yourself. But that's a little thing. I think this is a really great thing to have handy for any app, just to give your users some feedback. You know, I especially found it useful to use, like, say you're running a flow from a button in Power Apps, and maybe that button and flow goes and does something, like maybe it goes and adds a file to a library, or it does something exciting. It can bring back or respond back to Power Apps with the link to the file, right? And so you could actually put that link to the file here from the respond to Power Apps action in Flow. So get creative. There's a lot of things you can do with this screen. Not just say your thing is successfully completed, but your form was successfully submitted, your images were successfully uploaded, and so on. So really great screen. Love it. So now I'm going to show you the second one. I'm going to go to the one called tutorial. And to me, based on everything I see in this is probably the most, I guess I would say, intricate one as far as formulas go. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the first one, just because I just want to keep it minimized for this demo. And I'm going to rename this tutorial main. Okay. Now that I have that name, tutorial main, I shouldn't have, let's see what my accessibility is. Okay, so my icons don't have any labels, but I don't have a missing, I don't have a screen warning anymore, right? So good, wonderful. I might go ahead and put those labels in as well. But notice I don't have a lot of stuff on this screen either. I've got a label for skipping. So let me just show you how this works first, I suppose. So here we are on this first I would call it a step in the tutorial. And if I click this, watch the thing down here change to the second one, and the text changed. Also, what happened is I got a little left icon over here to say go back to the previous one. Okay, and then it only shows up if I have a previous one. And then I can do this in step, and each time I step, I get a different text, and feasibly I get a different picture. I'll show you how to do that. And I can step through this. So in essence, I have 4 steps. And if I want to skip some steps and go straight to the end, I have the skip button down here that will take me straight from whatever step I'm in to the end. Okay? So how does this work? This helps you to see how you don't need to have a lot of screens to do a tutorial. And this is like the best practice is when you're dealing with Power Apps, the minimum amount of controls you need is what you should use. This way your app will perform better. So I've got 4 steps with 4 different text blocks and 4 different images from one screen. And let me show you how they did that. So let's start by looking at the skip label. All right. Now, in addition to saying skip, it has an on select. And that on select sets something, a variable called guide step. And this is a global variable that's counting steps basically. So it's setting the guide step to the last step. And that's why we're going to that last step in this one. All right. So pretty straightforward. But what is it counting steps in? Notice that it's counting it from a gallery called Tutorial Navigator 1. And it's basically getting the last item step number from there. And that's where we're going here, right? So let's look at that Tutorial Navigator, which is down here. And I'm going to just zoom in on the app. right? You can see the gallery that's sitting here. And when we're running this, we don't see the outline of the gallery. So let me unselect it for a minute. You see, we just see the buttons. But if I select the gallery and then kind of expand it, you can see that it has a circle inside of it that's filled, depending on what step it's on, and it has the gallery. And here is where we decide what each of these steps are going to say, how they're numbered, and what image they show. Okay, so you can see we've created a table, and in this table, it's got three important columns: the step, the text, and the image. And here's where, I love Ian to death, but I can see his developer background because, he started at 0 and he counts 0, 1, 2, 3, and that gives us these 4 steps. But the lowest step is 0. And this is the step that helps us make that previous button invisible. And I'll show you that later. But let's say I wanted to change one of these images. Let me show you how I might do that. So I'm going to go to my media, and I'm going to upload an image. I have this little bunch of images from a Women in Leadership conference that we had with Caruana from Teams. She's such an awesome person. And I'm going to pull in one of those images. Now, be careful with your images because remember, you have an image, a maximum media size of 200 megabytes, and that includes images, videos, and audio. So be careful to be reasonable about your file sizes. Now, this image is called IMG 1017. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that gallery. And in here, I'm going to make that the image for step 2, which in our table here is called step 1. So I'm going to just put in here, did I just already forget what I just said? So let me look at my media. This is 1017. All right. So now I'm going to go into step 2. And I'm going to change this name to IMG. Don't worry about all that red. It's just because I don't have an image there. But now I have an image there, so it's all good. It's happy. So on the very first step, before I click anything, we're going to have that sample image. The second time we click, though, we're going to have the image I just uploaded. The third time, we'll have another image. So I can actually change this text as well. My custom. Sorry, I just made a mistake. And I'm Control-Zing to fix it. Okay, so I'm gonna go in here and highlight this and say my own custom image. And I'm glad you saw me make that mistake. Whenever things start getting funky because maybe you pressed the wrong button, which I did and whatever, just Control-Z. That is my backup curse word. Whenever I feel like I want to say a dirty word, I Control-Z. All right? So now that I've changed the text and I've changed the image for the second step, right? Let's try it and see what happens. Right? So I'm going to run this app. And now I'm in that 0 step right now, or what to people looks like step 1. But if I do next, there's the image I uploaded, and there's the text that I typed. So it's really easy to customize this tutorial to have the text and images that you want for your app. The key to customizing the tutorial screens is to be able to find that gallery called Tutorial Navigator, which is where the circles are, and then being careful to edit this text. Yes, you can feasibly add more steps, and yes, you can change it from needing images to doing something else. So be creative, but I really love this because this is like 90% of your work, keeps the number of controls down to a minimum, and is really easy to maintain. So that's that. Okay, so that was a cool one. I really like the way that one's done. Okay, let's look at the email one. Now, I was hesitant on whether I wanted to demo the email template in the tablet mode or the phone mode because I really like it better in the phone mode. But I wanted to show you that you can revise it. So I'm going to click on email in tablet mode, and you'll notice it'll stretch out on the screen to kind of fit this wide screen. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete that first screen. It just keeps things neat for this demo. And I want to show you something very interesting. Do remember that I did not have any data connections in this file, right? Rewind if you missed that, right? The very beginning, I showed you there's no data connection in this file. But look what happened when I added this template. Wow! They added 2 data sources for me. They added the Outlook for Office 365 for sending the email, and they added Office 365 users so that I can search all my peeps. Is that not awesome? I fell in love with that. And that's why when you add this template and also the other 2 that I'm going to show you, it takes a little bit longer to add the page. So it might take, it's not a long time, just extra seconds, because it's actually adding the data connections for you. I know all of you people who are new to using Power Apps will love the fact that you don't have to add a data connection. It's all done for you. Now, I will say that this is not a form control, right? So if you were expecting this to be a form, it's not. It is literally, as you can see over here, I'll talk about the galleries in a minute, but there's text fields for filling out the email message, right? Let me run it first, and let me find someone to email. Let's email Brian Dang. He's always fun to email. He answers email. He even reads it. I'm like, wow, I got to learn how to be like Brian. And then I can say, hi, Brian. And then I can say, my demo message. Please forgive this spam. So this is my message that I'm sending to Brian. Now, a couple of things happened you might have noticed. As I was searching, you saw a list of people that complied. All right. Let me do it again with my name, right? I can search for myself too. Notice that it starts to pull up as I type all the Audreys, right? So I only wanted this Audrey, right? So I can add as many people as I want to this. Let's do probably shouldn't do all these people because their email address is underneath. But here's where I'm going to go here and just get Audrey to come back up. Let me get Todd to come back up, one of my other favorite people. And then I'm just going to close this so that this gallery stays open. This gallery is kind of important, and that's why I kind of closed it even though I hadn't selected anyone, so I could show you how it's formatted. So if I click on this, this is the People Browse gallery. And if you look at the items property of this, that this gallery is only working really when you're searching for someone. Otherwise, it basically doesn't appear. And it's set to turn back the first 15 results. So you may want to adjust this if you need more than 15 results. In most cases, when you know people's name, you don't need more than 15 results. This keeps performance nice and clean, keeps your app from getting too clogged, right? You can check our Office 365 users connector for any limitations on how many can come back. But in this case, we recommend the top 15. Now, the other thing that happens in here is when you click on somebody, so I'm going to go into this People Browse gallery and click on the title, which is the person's name. That field has an on select statement that creates a collection called My People. So the My People collection will have everybody that they selected during search in it. And that's the collection that's important for the send of the email. Okay, so let me just get out of there. Again, we will have more documentation on this. I'm going to go ahead and select Todd, and I'm going to have my subject be, this is a test because I have so many people on the list. And then we're going to look at the send button. Right up here on the top right of that screen, you'll see that the little icon for sending an email. This has an on select that actually sends the email using the Office 365 Outlook connector that it added for you. right? So it's going to first create the string of people. And don't you love that now you can put comments and formulas? And we've done that in these screen templates so that you get an idea of what we were trying to do. So we make sure we use our commenting to give you tips. So in this case, the comment says, create semicolon separated list of people to email. And that's because Outlook needs semicolons between them. Then send the email. And then the last thing it does, which is kind of important, is it resets the My People collection so that it's empty using clear My People. So that My People collection will stay full of whoever you have until you actually perform a send action. Until you do that, any screen that uses that My People collection will continue to grow, right? But once you send something, once you perform an action, the collection is cleared, all right? So right now, in My People collection, let's go to the collections here, and you'll see that I have 3 people in my collection. The three wonderful guys that I picked, myself and Todd and Brian, okay? But as soon as I press send, so let's go ahead and run this and send this email. It clears everything out, and that you might have noticed that happened as a typical reset control, right? So if you look at the formula, this resets those what do you call them, input areas, right? And what I like also is that they're really good at naming everything in these screens, which means that if I wanted to find all my input text fields, because they're using text as a prefix, I can quickly find all my input fields by using the search in my screen navigator to find everything that prefixes with text, right? Because they're using email in a lot of things, I can use the email word to find all the objects related to the email. So it's like really cool that they've been naming things so that you can use your search in your Screen Explorer. So really, really, really awesome stuff with this template. Now, if it's too big for you, if you say, wow, that's just way too wide, then don't hesitate to control click on each one of these. Now, what I might suggest, if you want to keep it so that you're thinking about perhaps people have different size tablets, right? You can set the width to parent, which is whatever the parent is of that control, which in this case is the screen. Let's take the parent width and minus 400, right? That would be about that big. Let me minus 1000. That would be about that big. So now we have an email that looks like that. Okay, so you definitely can resize your things. Now, remember that you have to keep in mind that you do have a little gallery that's going to pop up, and that gallery is taking up quite a bit of space too. So if you want to, what you can do is also size your gallery to the same thing you size your gallery width to the same thing you size your input fields to, or something in that nature, so they don't cover up anything that you might put over here. Super cool. I really love it. What did I want to tell you else about this? Yep. Okay. So key to the email is you can size it any way you want. You want to remember that My People collection is being built, and it will continue to grow even if you add other screens that have other types of data that refer to it. And I'll show you how that can happen. But it won't clear until you click this button. Now, remember, before we looked at the collection, it had those 3 people in it, but now it's clear because I already sent the email. And so it cleared that collection, My People. All right. So now let's play in the phone app a little bit, and let's play with a couple of others. Now we have in our screens, we also have one called People. Now this is a real handy one that you might want to add to the top of a page of your app or whatever. And again, the People one, because it requires profile user information, is going to take a little bit longer because it's adding those connectors for me. So this new app now has Office 365 users. It doesn't need the Outlook because it's not sending any email, but it does need the users in order to find the people, right? It also has some conditional icons here that are only shown when there are no people visible. So you have some visible properties there. But when you use this particular one, let's look for me in here, right? And I'm going to do Gordon so that we only get, yep. And I'm going to click on her. Now, nothing else is going to happen. So I can select as many people as I want, and it will create a gallery almost identical to the one we saw in the other app. Only this one has pictures. And so we've got something that looks a lot like the thumbnail, right? And so it'll just keep adding people and it won't do anything else, right? If I want, as a result of selecting those people, maybe I want a gallery down beneath here that gives profile properties, or maybe I want to use these people names in some other way, I would have to configure those customizations. So this one I kind of think of as something that you might put at the top of a screen, and then underneath it, you might have something else going on. It's a nice addition to an existing screen, all right? But guess what? It makes the same collection we saw before with the same name. So if you were to use the people screen in the same app with the email screen, they would both be using the same collection. So be aware of that. And if you need them to both be in the same app and you don't want them to use the same collection, just rename the collection. That's all. Okay? Make sense? All right, let's look at another one. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And again, I love showing off that these layouts are adding data sources. So I have no data source right now. And now I'm going to add the meeting screen. This is a really cool screen, and I would probably recommend using it as is. There's not a lot you have to do with this one, right? So let's check our data sources, and notice it put in there for me the Outlook, right? Because I need the calendar, the Office 365 Outlook connector, and Office 365 users, again, so I can search for people. Now, again, this also uses that My People connection. So I'm going to run this and I'm going to search for Brian. I don't know. He's my favorite person. What can I say? And now I've got Brian up there. And now he is in the My People collection. So anytime I search for someone and pick them, the same way you saw in the previous one where we looked at the email selector, that's creating the people collection. All right. Now, after I make that person, I can put a can put a subject in here and one more, sorry to spam, right? Now, I'm going to make this meeting at like 1 in the morning. Knowing Brian, he probably would show up. But that way, let's see. Well, I think it shows the first 15 availabilities as well. Let's put it late. Let's put it today, and we'll put it at like 4:30. Oh, he does. You know what? Tomorrow he actually leaves for Florida. So he's not available. And then I'm going to say it's 1 hour long, right? Now you can see that it's helping me here. It automatically went over from invite to schedule, and it helped me to pick the date and the hour. So this was so seamless to me that I actually didn't even notice what I was clicking. I mean, it was just so easy. I would set up my invite. After I set up my invite, I would set up a schedule, which would be the date and how long it is. It would tell me what time slots were best. When I pick a time slot, now it wants to know what location. It actually understands the room availabilities in my company, can give me my building rooms that are available, and I can pick the room that I want to use. And basically, that's all I have to do before pressing send. And he got the invite. And so I just love that. It's such a cool little handy tool that if you're on your phone and you just want to set up a quick meeting, maybe so when I said that you could use this any way you want, I really believe this could be used right out of the box. But you know where this could be really useful? If you combine it with some other data that your user is using. Maybe the individual using the app is using dynamic sales, and they're going to set up a meeting with their team members and a customer. They can do this by, you leveraging the data from sales as well as the data from Outlook to put together their meeting and send it out to people by email. So I just think there's an opportunity to kind of mash up the idea of creating a meeting in your app. And here's one thing I really love. You can add to this action here. So right now, this is basically just creating the meeting invite, setting up the calendars. But if you wanted to, you could add in a new activity to your leads or opportunity in Dynamics, right? So how many people forget to add an activity that they sent an email to somebody, or they forget to add an activity that they called somebody? Go ahead and configure that into your app, add the Dynamics connector, and then you can actually well, I don't want to kill any birds. We can actually do two things at the same time: send the meeting invite and update the activity log in Dynamics. Think about that, right? But we've got you 90% there because we handled the email with this template. Love it. All right. Now, I think there's one more. Let's see. Yes, and it is my favorite as far as look and feel. So I'll go ahead and delete this one and share like the coolest thing ever, which is the calendar screen layout. Check this out, guys. You're just not going to get over this one. All right. So I'm going to put it down there. Again, it needs to add any connections it needs. It also will go and investigate what calendars I have. I don't know whether you recognize this, but in Outlook, you can have many calendars. Like personally, I manage quite a few calendars, not just one. But if you only have one calendar, you will get that as a default. I happen to have a few calendars, so I'm going to pick my work calendar. Now, this little icon over here is just a way to set it to today's date by default. And that icon will always reflect today. And today is the 21st of September, 2018. Look at this, guys. This is like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Thank you so much, Casey and Ian, for working on this and all the people who were involved in making these templates be alive. Do you know how many times I have tried to do this myself by making a gallery and figuring out how to lay it out? And now I don't even have to think about that. I can actually erase that memory from my mind because here it is done for me, right? And I can click on a different day so it actually goes through my meetings for today. Here's all my meetings. Look at even the test meeting that we just did together is there. And then I'm going to do the 24th. And it shows me all my meetings on the 24th. Now, next week is going to get funky. So I have some long-winded email titles. So if you find I mean, not email, but meeting titles. If you find that your meeting titles are kind of tight in there, you can always decrease the font size or reformat it any way you want. What you also have is the location directly underneath. So automatically it shows you the date in the calendar, the time, the meeting name, how long it is. You got the duration. The little location icon is just telling you that this means this is where it is. Hey, there is nothing stopping you from configuring that location icon to being a click into Bing to actually look up the address. Now, in that case, you might want to look at one of my previous videos on how to click off into a map using Bing or Google. Um, so you can always add that, but that would be an on select that you would add to that location icon because right now it doesn't do anything but let you know that is the meeting location. So, but I just love this. I just think this is a really wonderful way to kind of browse your meetings. And again, I could see this even, especially in a landscape app. I could see the calendar being on the left side of the screen, and on the right side of the screen, all my customers from dynamic sales, and maybe underneath on the bottom of the screen, all my related documents from SharePoint, and then I can associate my calendar event to my documents and my sales, and my life gets so much fun, right? So I hope you're really going to enjoy these templates. You can just go learn more about them in our blog. Just look for Announcing Pre-Built Office 365 Screens and Power Apps by Casey Burke. Thank you, Casey, and thank you, Ian, for your hard work on these beautiful templates. And I wish you guys the most wonderful weekend. Those of you that will be at Microsoft Ignite next week, I'll see you there. And hit me up for coffee or something. Let's talk if you're going to be there. I look forward to another Friday Functions video, which will be out when we get back from Ignite, which won't be next Friday, which will be the following Friday.